Star, you are my first meteorologist on a podcast called I Am Not a Weather Girl. So that's like a big deal.
That is a big deal, right? First of all, I'm so excited for you. I'm so happy for you. And I'm just honestly just so appreciative of the opportunity to be here and be in this seat and be your first official meteorologist on your podcast.
I'm so honored.
Absolutely.
Let's start at the beginning. I usually like to start at the beginning. Yeah. Let's talk about your big family because it is vastly different than what I grew up with. So I want to hear all about it.
Oh my goodness, girl. Crazy, crazy, crazy family, right? So I'm extremely close to all of my family. I have my mom and my dad who are both originally from South Central Los Angeles. And I have 6 siblings. I have 5 sisters and 1 brother. We all share the same mom. So my mom had twins twice.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. I know, right? You and me as moms, it's like, it blows my mind. I'm like, I have 1, and I'm like, I have no idea how you did it. So I also have a huge extended family. So
yes, you do.
Yeah. I continue. Everyone's always in awe, like, talk to us about the family. And I countless times have shared. I have the last time I counted about 70 or just slightly over 70 first cousins.
Did you guys hear that? 70 first cousins?
Yep, that's right. My mom, is just an example of that. My mom has I have about 8 aunts and uncles on just my maternal side, and everyone has at least 5 children, right? And so that just starts to add up.
Have I told you how many cousins I have?
No.
2. 2 cousins.
That sounds wild to me. Like, I'm sure that's more like, on the regular or normal side of things. But I'm just like, I couldn't imagine. Like,
well, I'm so intrigued, but it's got to be amazing growing up with such a big family.
Yeah. I grew up right here, right down between the South Central and the San Fernando Valley area. And I talk to my dad every single morning. He's how I get my morning started. And my mom lives about 5 minutes away from me. I have my siblings. Most of us live in the same building. Like,
amazing.
Obnoxiously close. Yeah.
Amazing, but such a blessing.
It's such a blessing. It is literally, I wouldn't trade it. Growing up, I was just like, oh my goodness, I have so many sisters. And I'm the oldest. Let me add that in there. I am the oldest. Yeah.
That's another dynamic.
Yes. Growing up, I can honestly say I hated it. I was like, and then we have a huge age gap. Me and my brother are a year apart, and then our mom didn't have any other kids for about 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were the only kids, and then she came home like, hey, having twins. I'm like, send them back. But, now that, we're older and at this age, with that 15-year age gap, I always say they help keep me young. Like, they're always showing me something new, and oh my gosh, Star, you're such a grandma. Try this. So I'm like, okay, it's paid off to have younger siblings.
And when did you first learn that you might want to go into news?
I've always known. I've known since I was 8 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I've known since I was 8 years old. My parents were young when they had me. They were teenagers. I'd say about 16, 17 years old. And so my grandparents were a huge influence in my, childhood. So essentially they helped raise me, my grandmother, Henrietta. And so since I was 8 years old with, being in, my grandparents' household, it was very old school. We had TVs everywhere, the kitchen, the bathroom, the backyard, the garage, literally everywhere. And so another thing was news was always on the TV. My grandma also had her own antique shop. And so she also owned a plant nursery. And so it was always dependent on the weather. We got to make sure to water the plants or however, I don't remember the full dynamic of that, but I just remember the TV always being on and on the news channel, and we would wait for those weather reports because that kind of just like orchestrated how our day was going to go.
Yeah, my mom grew up working in local news when I was in Detroit, and so the TV was always on.
Yeah.
We were always committed to WXYZ, ABC in Detroit, always, because my mom worked there. But yeah, always on the TV, always at dinner time. That's what was playing. And yeah, you just kind of grow up around it.
Yeah, so you actually know exactly what I mean. I didn't know that about you. Is your was your mom behind the scenes or in front of the TV?
She was behind the scenes. She
Okay.
was a business manager in the newsroom, which meant, because that doesn't really exist anymore,
Yeah.
basically she did all of the HR scheduling for all of the crew, all of the talent. That mostly is taken on by the assistant news director now,
Yeah.
but back then there were more positions, but that's what she did. Yeah.
A little bit different. So I know a lot of people don't like have those type of origins towards like TV in the house. That's how I knew, but it's just as literally as simple as that. My grandma would genuinely sit me in front of the TV, and I promise you, she'd always be like, I could see you doing that. I could see you doing that. And you know, I think for a lot of the meteorologists that I've met, at least, you know, on my journey, a lot of them, you know, have very similar stories as to what got them started. And, you know, while I do have a natural disaster that impacted and maybe, you know, sprinkled a little bit of energy as to, oh, okay, this is also an additional reason why I want to go into meteorology. The honest answer to that question is my grandma. My grandma kind of just, she planted that seed for me. And so for me, I was always like, I think this is what I want to do. Like, you know, when you ask like your babies, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
I was always like, I want to be on the TV. I want to be on the news. I want to be on the news. And then later on, later on, it actually happened.
Did you say a natural disaster?
Yeah. So the 1994 earthquake, 6.7 magnitude, the epicenter of that was in Northridge.
Yes.
And so in that earthquake, I actually lost my childhood home. My mom had lived in this house since she was a teenager. I was born in that house. And so, that earthquake happened, and I just remember it burned down our home. My dad and my uncle were, I just remember them. I can close my eyes and visualize these like things happening to where like my dad and my uncle were pulling people out of windows. They were climbing up trees to like save people from homes that were also on fire in the neighborhood. I believe our gas line probably broke or our hot water heater bursted or something, but all I know is everything crumbled to the ground. Our stairs, like we couldn't even get down because they literally had like disintegrated. And Northridge, it was a nightmare. Like the park next door, I remember it was like, it eventually turned into like a campsite, and me and my family, we moved away to Santa Clarita for a little bit. So we moved in with my grandparents until my mom was able to get that home rebuilt, and she actually lives right back, same block, same area, same spot, like after everything eventually rebuilt. But yeah, that sparked my curiosity.
Is the recent wildfires with people losing their homes in Altadena and the Pacific Palisades, is that triggering at all to you?
Oh my goodness. Yes, absolutely. I think, in the moment, so I honestly, when I got back to LA, I hit the ground running. I came in, and obviously we weren't expecting for that to happen. We were able to tell a few days before because we had that PDS issued, particularly dangerous situation. Right. So we were anticipating it. But even then, just to see how things unfolded, I think in that moment, I was having an out-of-body experience. So initially, it was just like, the initial emotions that I remember feeling was extreme sadness. I could say that I honestly, cried for about 4 to 5 days just for these people, because I know what that feels like to lose everything, every photo, every picture, your artwork from when you're, in elementary school and you're bringing home all the magnets and cups and things that you've built for your parents. And so we lost all of that. And so it just took me back to that moment, not to sound selfish, but it reminded me of, what I went through as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Switching gears, you said you always wanted to work in news. Mm-hmm. Is that what you originally studied or went to college for, or how did that all play out?
For me, I am a first-generation graduate, and so prior to doing meteorology, I was in nursing. So,
oh my goodness,
right, completely different field. And so, because my mom was a nurse at the time, my a really close friend of mine, her family owned a caregiving agency and a facility, and so the pieces and the puzzle pieces just like mixed and matched, and it kind of made it easy for me to get into that field. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to be a nurse. Little did I know, once I was actually in that position, I love people. Anybody who knows Star is a people person. The more the merrier.
Yes, she is.
Absolutely. I grew up with a big family, so I enjoy being around people. And so I think it was just like the closeness and the intimacy and what it, that field requires of me. I was just like, yeah, I can't do this. This is not for me. And so it honestly, the transparency in that is, it took for me to have my son Bryce, who's now 12 years old, but it took for me to have my son Bryce and for a light to go off. And I just went into just like a different mode, like hustle mode, grind mode, to where, girl, like, you're about to give life, And so like, what are you doing with your life? Are you just existing? And I was like, I got to do, it just lit a fire under my butt to really go after what I wanted, And it took for me to have my son to realize that I want to go after what I really, really want in this lifetime.
I love that you said this, because I think that many women are afraid to switch paths.
Yeah.
It's never too late to do what you want to do.
Listen, I literally am like, little miss, if I can do it, you can do it. I am like self-designated leader of that group. It is never too old or too late, and you're never too old to try and start anything. I have no problem in sharing. I think I remember, once I did decide to go back to college, I was two weeks postpartum. So my son was only 2 weeks old. At the time, I was a stay-at-home mom. And for me, I disliked it. While we were very active, we were everywhere. Mommy and me yoga, mommy and me surfing. Like, we did everything. Me and Bryce just explored all of California, every nook and cranny. And even within that, I felt just like a sense of boredom, and I felt a sense of, I got to do more. I want to do more. And so with 2 weeks old, I went back to school. I started from the bottom. I went to community college, Valley College. As honest as I can be, I was in the back of the classroom with a baby attached to my boob. I was breastfeeding in the back of the class. And there were many opportunities where I had so many teachers that were like, yeah, no, that kid cannot be in this classroom. And, for every, teacher or professor that I had with that energy, I had 3 or 4 other ones. One in particular that I will never forget was like, bring him here, bring him into my classroom, leave him in class with me, bring him into my office hours. But you show up to school and you do not give up. There is something in you that whatever you're going to be a part of, I want to be able to say that I knew you and I gave a helping hand. So it was real. I went back to school, and when people ask me, how did you do it? I honestly am like, I don't remember. Like, I just remember doing it. I remember going after it. I went to community college, eventually transferred into the university. And then after that, I discovered, I got to go to school much longer. And so I enrolled in Mississippi State, and the rest is, history.
What was your first news market?
My first news market was in Colorado. So everyone I say Colorado, everyone's like, ooh, Denver. I'm like, yeah, no, try again. I was in literally Grand Junction, a really, really small town on the western slope of Colorado. I remember for 3 years, this was my schedule. I interned at ABC 7 here in LA. So I interned at a news station from like overnight hours, from I'd say midnight to about 6 o'clock in the morning. My son had school from like 7 to like 2. So I would go to my internship for a few hours, pick my son up, take him to school. Once I dropped my son off to school, then I would go to school. After I got done with school, I would then go to work. I would go to sleep for about 2 hours, pick my son up, drop him back off, and then go right back into my internship. And I didn't just have one internship. I was also working at LA Parent Magazine. So I was doing 2 internships at one time, working a job, and still being a mommy, full-time mommy.
Wow.
So and I did that for about 3 years. And I remember at the most I was sleeping about 2 to 3 hours, but I was so committed. I was like, all hands on deck. I got to do what I got to do. Everyone has a sad story. Make it happen if you want it. So
that is so inspiring. And, from there, where did you head next?
So once I left Colorado, so when I went to Colorado, in this market, most of us are not making a lot of money, like in that first market.
Right.
I myself was making, very transparent, I believe under 25,000 in my first market. And so I could not afford to bring my child with me. Also, I was leaving to Colorado by myself. And this is a big part of my story because I was always, that primary parent. I'd never missed a doctor's appointment. I had never missed a soccer game. My son fell, bump his head, bump a knee, scrape. I am at his beckoning call. Like, I had never missed anything. And so that decision to, go to that first market was, for me, it was like I was like, do or die. You either do or you don't. And I never wanted to wonder what if. So I packed up my bags knowing I'm pretty sure I had about several mental breakdowns. And because, I had such a small income there, I left him behind with his dad and with my family. Also, he had so much support here. I was going away to where I'm by myself, and I figured it'd be a lot harder. And so also I wanted him to have a sense of stability. So leaving him here in the same school and just making sure he's surrounded. He still has his dad, right?
Right.
So didn't just leave him with a stranger. He's still here with his dad, and he's surrounded with my family, my mom, my dad, or not my dad at the time, but my mom and all of my siblings. And so I think, after that, I went to Houston. And so also when I was in Colorado, I would only fly back once a month to see my son. Like, I seen him once a month. And then the pandemic happened. Once the pandemic happened, I was able to move him with me to Colorado. And that, worked in our
Game
favor.
changer.
Game changer. So from there, I believe I was at market, and don't quote me on this, it was 180 something. I believe it was probably 187 or 189, one of the two. And I was so committed. I'm like, I have to jump top 10. I have to jump top 10. And for me, making that jump was more so about the income. I have to make a sufficient income to where I can support myself and my child, give him the lifestyle that he deserves, but also try to get closer back to home. I knew I wasn't coming back home initially, right back into LA after Colorado. I was like, I probably have to make one or two more moves before I can do that, but get as close as possible. So I had a few markets that I had acceptance offers from, and I decided to go with Houston. So I moved into Houston.
And how was that?
Let me just tell you, when I first moved to Houston, I arrived before that big winter freeze. I was supposed to do about 2 to 3 weeks of, just training, off-air training and everything, all the paperwork and whatnot. It was one of those situations where I arrived and like a few days later, the winter storm hit and they're like, Star, we got to kind of just toss you in the deep end. And we were doing wall-to-wall coverage for, I believe, about a week and a half. So I slept at the station. I was eating out of a vending machine. I literally was taking like bird baths. Like, I had never in my life experienced anything like that. I knew about it, obviously, in our industry, but that is how I arrived there. We couldn't drive. We had no power at the house. Like, I had to stay at the station because we had to be on air to be able to, give the information to our community. So Houston was a ball game. Houston was a different type of beast. I loved Houston. If you ask my son Bryce, out of all the markets that we've had the opportunity to move to, Houston will forever go down as his favorite.
Really?
Still to this day, he's asking, "Will we ever move back to Houston?" He loved Houston. I loved Houston as well.
How long were you in Houston for?
I was in Houston just slightly over 2 years. A little bit over 2 years.
And is that when New York called?
Yes. I, again, had an offer from two stations, New York being one of those. And I had no intention on ever going to the East Coast. My goal, again, was to always get as close as possible. Although my son was in Houston with me the entire time, I still wanted to stay as close to the West Coast as possible. But New York called with an offer that I could not. Like, I was like, I will be there tomorrow. It was something I couldn't turn down. And so, again, it was the issue of uprooting my child again, And so for mommies in this industry, if you're in it, then you understand what I'm talking about, And so I was like, we just spent 2 years in Houston. I just told you how much he loved it, and I didn't want to break what he had built, And so I was able to orchestrate it to where Bryce could stay there to finish out his last year. So what I ended up doing was I took my station in New York worked with me. So for 9 months straight, 9 months, I flew back and forth every single week from New York to Houston for
Wow.
9 months straight, every single week. So it was crazy. It was wild. But again, while I was doing what I love to do, I also had to make sure to show up for my son in that same space. He's along with me over, the course of his entire life. I've went back into school when he was 2 weeks old, and he's had to sacrifice just as much as I've had to sacrifice. And so I'm like, I promised him, I promise you that mommy is going to make this all worth it. And so that's just one of those, again, stories along the way where for 9 months, every single week.
And I know you already know this, but you are a great mom.
Thank you.
You are a great mom. I am so inspired when I see the videos and the posts, and he is just so loved. And I just want you to know that you are doing such an amazing job. I know with all the travel and having to go jump markets, but you always kept him as a priority.
Always. Thank you so much for saying that. I can tell you that every time I hear it, it never gets old. Like, hearing you're a good mom never gets old. It's something that I work extremely hard for. I had a vision when my baby, literally, I call him my sunshine, SON shine, or sunshine as well, because when he was born, a light went off, and that light to where you have to get this right, and so I just feel like Bryce literally came into this world, and for me, I call him my saving grace, my biggest motivating factor. He came into this world, and I've just changed me, made me into this better person, and he gave me the courage that I didn't know that I needed to be here today. And as crazy as this sounds or may not sound, I know without a doubt that if I did not give birth to that little boy, I would not be here today. Wow. I would not be here today, because I just don't think that I would have had that mindset as it's not just about you anymore. You have to make a change for this little guy as well. And so
they say motherhood changes things, but it really changes everything.
Everything, every single thing that we do, I make sure to just, like I said, he's had to sacrifice a lot as well. And so it's really big on me to just make sure that he still has a childhood, to where we travel a lot together. We've homeschooled through this process, and through homeschooling in this process, we've had the opportunity to do so much, he's lived in multiple cities. He's, have been immersed in many, many, many different cultures. And we've had some of the craziest opportunities just, from me working in this field. And he has very close upfront view as to what I do. And if you ask him to this day, he's still no, I'm not doing news. No, I want nothing to do with it. He wants to be an engineer.
Hey, so, that's great too, right?
Yeah, right. He's he wants to build roller coasters, which I'm anything you want to do. He wants to build roller coasters, but then he also wants to be a food
critic.
Food critic. He wants to be a food critic.
Amazing.
I'm do both. Yes, do both. The world is yours. You can do whatever you want. He plays soccer, football. To this day, if it's hey, Star, what do you do on your off time? I'm I am literally Bryce's personal assistant. We are soccer, swim, football, track right now. He plays the guitar. He's just amazing.
Bryce is amazing. I have the same 24 hours like Beyonce.
Exactly. He's Mom, we got 3 hours in the day left. What are we doing today? I'm we are going to sleep. We are going to rest. Okay, let's go to bed. So, yeah.
So working in New York, which station were you at, and what was that experience like?
Ooh, I get excited to talk about this one. I was at WPIX, just known as Pix 11 News. Yeah, Pix 11, and it's in Midtown Manhattan, so right smack dab in the middle of Manhattan, tongue twister. And it was, I think, just the way that New York showed up. It was I'd be walking down the street with my son. Everyone's like, "Hey, Star." The bus drivers would stop. The Dominican and the Puerto Rican abuelitas, just stopping you in the street to take pictures with you. You're in the grocery store. Everyone wants to help you carry your bags, or being at the corner store and, you don't have the exact change. And it's like, no, come back later. We know you. We love you. We encourage, we support you. Being stopped there whenever I go out to eat. And, one of the biggest things for me, at least, is to, have those run-ins with, the little girls. And it's like, oh my gosh, if you can do it, then I can do it, and as cliche as that sounds, I've experienced it in real time. And so New York kind of showed up for me that way. It was that space that I was able to really just like have that comfortability to just be myself, in the way that I show up actually on TV, the way that I talk, the way that I look, the way that I dress, my fashion choices, which has garnered me a lot of attention across social media. And we can definitely talk about that as well. But it's just the embrace, we see you and we love you and we appreciate you and we want all of who you are.
A somewhat recent study said that 23% of women are meteorologists, only 23%. Mm-hmm. And only about 3.7% of meteorologists are Black. Yep. What does it mean to you to show that representation? Yeah. You mentioned that little girl that mm-hmm. said, I can do that now. I see you.
Yeah. This is another thing that makes me like extremely emotional. I'm such a crybaby. Like I am all things a Cancer, like true Cancer, super emotional. I didn't really understand the weight of that until I left Colorado. So at my station in Colorado, in the entire standing of that station, I am still to this day, I believe, the first and only Black female meteorologist that has ever worked at that station. And that says a lot. That says a lot. When I got to Houston, my time in Houston, I was the only Black woman as a meteorologist on air, working on air as a meteorologist at that time. And so I think for me, it's not things that I initially paid attention to, but then I always had it pointed out to me. Like, hey, did you know this? Do you know that? And, people are, you show up and, I talk about where I come from. I talk about how I didn't have the easiest childhood. I talk about how, I didn't grow up with, this like silver spoon in my mouth at all. Everything that I have, I've had to work extremely hard for it. Like literally get it out the mud for myself and for my son. And so I am very transparent about that. And so when I show up that way, there are people in certain communities that are like, oh, wait, she looks like us. She talks like us. If she's doing it, then yes, we can do it as well. So to show up and know that I'm representing an entire group of people, I wouldn't say that that's a hard weight to carry because it's the energy that they give back to me, the community. It's just like, oh, okay, like I can do this. It feels good. It feels good to be that person. It feels good to be able to do what I do. And because I'm so authentic, because I look like you, or because I show up and I talk a certain way, or I dress a certain way, and I feel approachable, I feel real, people, it really does translate into she's one of us. If she can do it, then I can do it. And it's literally going to go down in my lifetime as just one of those like top things that I've ever experienced in this life, for sure.
Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
You went from New York mm-hmm. and then you're now back home.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Oh, yeah. Listen, this entire time that I've been on this journey, it took me 7 years to get back home. I always knew that I would be back home. I just didn't know when. I am an extremely spiritual person. I also share that online. And I always say that it was never up to me. It was always up to God. I know that when I started in this journey, God showed to me, you will be back home. I will bring you back to where you started. I will bring you back to where you want to be. You're going to have to do a lot of work. You're going to have to trust me. You're going to have to be obedient, and you're going to have to believe in me, but also believe in yourself. And so I always knew. I had honestly no idea when. And so every place that I moved around, I was never like stressed about, oh, when am I going to get home? I never felt that feeling. I knew that it was a journey, and I knew that it would end here. Whether it was going to be 10, 15 years, I knew it was going to happen. It was really hard, as easy as it may like seem like, oh girl, what? You're coming back home. Like, you'll be like, what? This is what you wanted. It's like, I'm leaving behind something so good, but then I am also coming into something that's so good as well. And so when I did, get that phone call, I literally dropped to my knees. I dropped to my knees and I thanked God. That is the first thing I did. Before I called my mom or dad or anybody, I literally dropped to my knees and I just thanked God. I am like, you did what you told me you were going to do. And I get so just like goosebumps just thinking about it.
And coming home to your family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Coming home full time to your son.
Yes.
What does that feel like to now be reporting the news in your hometown?
It's unreal. It is so unreal. I have videos that I took when I was, in this market as an intern. And I remember walking into like my first station that I interned at here 7, 8 years ago. And I remember taking a picture while the newscast was going on. And I made that statement. I was like, I will be back here, And so I think for me to actually like remove myself and take a step back and realize that it happened. Like, I'm still taking that all in. I've been home for about 4 months now. It feels so good. It feels so incredibly good. It feels good to have my family here. It feels good to be able to pull up to my mom's house unannounced whenever I feel like it, even if she doesn't want to see my face for the day. And it feels good to pull up on my dad as well and, see my siblings and, for Bryce to be back home, like, surrounded by his family. And it's not just, the two of us out here just doing our thing. It feels so good. I've always had the support, but the support back at a close level is unreal. And then I think to actually sit back and realize, and, I'm just like humbly like, oh my goodness, like I'm really here. Like,
I did it.
I really did it. I'm so proud of myself. I'm just so thankful to God. Like without him, I know that I wouldn't be here. And, I don't know. I think I'm still taking it all in. I feel like I haven't really digested it, but all I know is that feeling, the ultimate feeling that I feel is like, this is real. I think I'm really here.
And now you have literally people you grew up with taking videos of the TV screen saying, I see you.
Yes. Yeah. That's probably one of the coolest parts as well. These are people that have, been supporting me from day one. And I remember every person that has been there along my journey to, the acknowledgement as much as we know, social media isn't always real. Social media has been a big factor into how I've been able to keep my confidence and how I've been able to maintain a certain, speed in getting through this. It's because of the support that I receive and the people that I know that want to see me get to the finish line. And a lot of those people I went to school with, a lot of those people I met, in mom groups right after I had Bryce, and they're like, girl, you really did it. My aunts and uncles are able to turn on the TV. My mom, my grandparents are able to turn the TV on and literally sit back. I had my grandpa on air for his birthday back in January.
I saw. Amazing.
Yeah, he was almost at a loss for words. He's just like, I remember you being 10 years old and you told us that you were going to be on TV and you're here.
Becoming a meteorologist and those that want to become a meteorologist, what would be some of your tips and tricks for getting into this position?
Yeah. So this is also something that I'm very intentional about. When I first got started in meteorology or wanted to get started, I could not find a single soul to help me. I'd go to people that I, know that were in the market and I'm like, how did you do it? How did you get here? And it was always just, no, just do this. And I'm like, wait, I need you to, how? And it was always, well, you just got to do. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't help me. And so I kind of just figured it out and finessed it myself. And I was learning as I was in the field. Like I was learning every step of the way. I didn't have a mentor or anyone to any real guidance or anything like that. I definitely had people along the way that, were already in the market that once I, was able to, make my certain footprints that were like, maybe do or try this, da 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 da. And so because I didn't have that assistance or help, I'm very intentional about helping anyone that comes to me. I right now mentor, I'd say, a handful of men and women that what I didn't have, I want to make sure to give to you. So I will help you what class I took, what person I had to go to. I will give you that person's, whoever helped me, I will give you that person's contact information. Matter of fact, let them know I sent you. I'm very intentional on by the step, hey, grab a pen and a piece of paper, because I am going to make sure that you can say that I went to Star and Star gave me, she did not gatekeep. She gave me every single pointer that I needed. And so I honestly would say that, for anyone listening or wanted to get into the field or, work their way up, is the confidence that it takes, to be able to sustain in this industry. I started with about 20 people that I know that went to the same college as I did. And I'd say of those, there's probably about 3 or 4 of us that were able to, stick it out because of how, rigorous, it could be. And so I'd say just, you got to shut off the noise, shut off the outside noise. It's not easy. It was not easy to get here. Nothing will be handed to you. You will have to work extremely hard. But I think make up your mind. Make up your mind about what you want, where you want to be, and do not stop until you get there. You don't take no for an answer. You spearhead it. You go for it. You make plans, make those little goals. Every year I had a goal. I will do this. I won't do this. I'm going to make sure by this time to have this done. And I made sure to hit those markers. And so that's partially some of the information that I would offer.
What do you think makes a great meteorologist?
I think somebody that's in it, that genuinely enjoys it. Somebody that literally shows up with the cause of wanting to help and protect our community. I think that that's what makes a good meteorologist. You enjoy what you do. You show up to work empowered to literally give this information to the people that need it the most, especially when we're in the thick of hurricanes, nor'easters, floods, whatever it may be. I think when you enjoy what you do in this position, it translates across, the airwaves, and people are tuned in for that,
And coming from 2 people, we love our style. We love, showing up with our personalities, like our clothing. But that said, if you only focus on aesthetics, that's only going to get you so far.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I think do not be in it for that. For me, I was never in this I just want to be on TV. To each their own. If that's your thing, that's your thing, right? It was never mine. For me, I enjoy doing this. I love people, I want to inform people. I want to be so good at this that people, whenever there's anything going on that, you need the forecast, that they turn to me for it. And so setting my fashion aside, it's like, you got to know what you're talking about, right? And then I'm like, and then I just happen to look like this. No, no, I'm very confident in who I am. I'm very confident in my fashion choices. I dress how I feel, if it could be pouring down raining outside, which it's sprinkling outside right now, and my legs are out a little bit, and that doesn't matter to me. I genuinely dress how I feel. We'll be in the middle of summer and I'll have a leather skirt on, a long sleeve, but before I left my house, that's how I felt,
That's a good segue. Where do you get this confidence from, and how do you build that?
My confidence comes from God. I know that no matter how oversaturated a market is, I don't care how oversaturated a position is, whatever it may be, if God called you to it, he will pull you through it. And so my confidence comes from God, but also my confidence was a big part of growing up. My parents are 2 of the most amazing human beings. My mom is like, you can't tell her nothing, right? She is like, still to this day, with her 7 kids, like she is like a grandma, like she doesn't even go by grandma, like better not ever call her grandma. She still gets dressed up and goes out and lives her life. And so it's a reflection of, I could honestly say, my mom, and my dad. They love themselves, and self-love was a big thing growing up in my house.
What do you find to be some of the biggest challenges as a meteorologist?
Me in particular, I could say one of the biggest challenges that I've had to face, speaking from a personal standpoint, is very transparent, being the fact that I am a Black woman in a male-dominated field. And so I've had to overcome and struggle through a lot to be able to get to where I'm at today. I've had to be able to carry myself a certain way. My grandparents always told me, you'll always have to work twice as hard as anybody in the room. And I can say that that is a testament to my journey, 100% true for me. And I'd say pretty much it's being able to maneuver, hold a certain grace, do it humbly, do it respectfully, and show up for yourself, show up for yourself.
I love that.
Thank you.
Let's talk about your children's book, though.
Yes.
If you didn't think she was busy enough, she also wrote a children's book, everyone. Let's talk about that.
Yes. So I did Shoot for the Stars. I'm so sad I didn't bring a copy of it here today. Shoot for the Stars, my first children's book. It is a book that was dedicated to my grandmother. The book is talking about my journey to get where I'm at today. It is a dedication to my grandma and the seeds that she planted in the very beginning, and just making sure to just see my way through it, despite all of the naysayers, despite the fact that, things got hard and you couldn't figure it out along the way. Like, you never give up. And so, I am working on my second book already.
You are.
I am. Yeah, I'm so excited. Shoot for the Stars. You can find it on Amazon, but also in Barnes and Noble. And even that's so exciting. Like, never in a million years did I think I'd have like my book like on the shelves, like in this major bookstore. It's so awesome. But yeah, my second book, my son Bryce and I are writing a book together. I won't give too much away, but it should be out, I'd say, before the beginning of next year.
I love that.
Thank you.
So exciting. Talking about social media and how great you are at social media, I want to pivot back to that briefly.
Yeah.
What are some tips for journalists and women that want to enhance their social media accounts for their work?
Yeah. That's a great question, because even for myself, I'm always looking at ways to there's always something changing on social media, right? Including the algorithms, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so how do I even keep up? And so I'll spend a little bit of time, with me, even just like finding my people that influence me across social media and paying attention to the patterns that they're using. So I'd say for anybody at home trying to figure out, how do I grow my social media? It's literally figuring out, what message are you trying to put out? Like, what is your message? For me, my message, there's two things about me on social media. The fact that I'm a meteorologist and how I got to where I'm at, and then that I'm a mother. And so those are the two things that
Those are the two things that popped in my head immediately.
Yeah.
So you're doing something right.
Right. Those are the two things for me. And so again, I go back to journaling. My social media is literally just me journaling, giving all my credit to God, but then also I literally share the message. If I can do it, trust me, this girl who comes from nothing, absolutely nothing. And if I'm able to get here within 7 years, you can do it. Almost got lost at words, because it's as simple as that. Like, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. So I'd say finding what your niche is. For me, it's work and my son, and sharing that with people. And I want to encourage people, and I want to empower people to, honestly, if I can do it, so can you.
Well, this was amazing, but I never end without the quick fire. Yeah. So we have to do all of those fun
I'm a
things.
Scared.
Oh, they're easy. Trust me. Your coffee order.
Ooh, it is either going to be an upside down iced caramel macchiato.
What?
Yep, I had one on my way here.
Can you explain that really quickly?
Yes. You want to know what's inside of that?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, I have no idea. I'm not even going to lie to you.
Wait,
I don't know.
Upside down?
Upside down just means sometimes when you get your coffee, it's separated. Like the espresso and then the milk is at the bottom. I don't want to shake it up myself. I don't want to do that. So pretty much they shake it. It's upside down. So you don't have that separation in your cup.
An upside down
Caramel macchiato.
caramel macchiato.
Yes,
Wow.
Yes. Or a matcha.
Or matcha.
Or matcha.
That's
Those
great
are my
too.
two. Yeah. Boba matcha.
Your favorite travel destination?
Has been Thailand.
Ooh.
Yeah. Thailand.
I love that. When did you go there?
About 8 years ago, I went to Thailand. And I think for me, what set it apart, I've traveled a lot. I've traveled so much. And I'd say my thing that brings me back to Thailand, I always say that I don't want to visit the same place twice because there's so much to see.
Right.
Thailand is the one place that I'm like, I will go any day of the week. And I think it was the culture. It was the culture that was there. It were the people. It was the peace that I felt that when I was there. It was the food. The street food. Yeah. I was so afraid at first to eat the street food because I'm like, I just don't want to get sick and have a weak stomach or anything like that. But I did not get sick. I was eating everything in sight. It was very inexpensive. And so I loved that as well. I was able to ball on a budget.
Yeah. My friends are in Thailand right now and I just want to visit so badly.
Yes.
It looks amazing.
It was so nice. And when I went to Thailand, we did a trip, Singapore, Thailand, and then Bali. It was amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Your favorite restaurant?
The first thing that literally pops in my head is Ocha.
Where's that?
Ocha's in the valley, I believe. It's in North Hills or Mission Hills, and it's Thai food.
Something people often get wrong about you.
That I'm related to Steve Harvey.
What?
Girl, the amount, literally there, under my own pictures, I will have strangers that I don't know arguing about the fact that Steve Harvey is my dad. I continuously set the record straight. I have never even met the man.
Really?
No idea. Yeah, no idea where that comes from. But yeah,
hilarious.
According to social media, Steve Harvey is my dad. Yeah, he's not.
He's not, everyone. Let's set the record straight, guys.
Yes.
The last movie, TV show, or book you watched and loved?
White Lotus.
Are you watching the recent one in Thailand?
Yes. So I've only seen one episode from the new season, but I binged watched, and it's one of those shows that I just continue to encourage other people to watch. It's so good. It's addicting.
So good.
So good.
A snapshot of an ordinary, everyday moment that gives you true joy.
A laughing baby, just a baby, literally, I will watch and replay videos on social media all day of babies just laughing. I don't know why.
If you could switch lives with one person for a day, who would it be?
Beyonce.
Amazing.
I didn't waste any time. I literally would switch places with Beyonce easily. Oh my goodness. I watched that woman in concert after having twins on the On the Run tour. And I was and I even, hesitate to say this, but I wasn't a Beyonce fan before that. I was just I like Beyonce. But once I seen her in concert, I was I couldn't even blink after I had Bryce. You're on stage, amazing. Beyonce for sure.
Honestly, I feel like you could. I think you could trade places with her and do just fine.
Listen, I call myself the Beyonce of weather.
There we go.
Okay.
One thing you're deeply grateful for right now?
My family. Yeah. My mom. I am so thankful that my parents are healthy and alive and they get to experience, my adulthood with me. And yeah, my parents, I'm so indebted and just thankful that my parents are, here to see me through where I'm at now. I lost my grandma a few years back, but my parents are still here. So I'm so grateful for the two of them.
If you could go back in time to when you first started your career, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
The hate is going to come. And while you're good at blocking it out, find ways to be better at shutting it completely off. So just know that the hate is going to come and be ready for it. Be ready to show up and embrace even those people with love. And you just keep going because it doesn't matter.
Just keep going.
Just keep going. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming. Star, this was amazing.
It was.
Thank you so much for talking with me. Anything you want to add before I let you go?
I just think, I just, to anybody that's listening, or watching, trust me when I say, if I can achieve my wildest dream, because I am living in it. I am literally living my wildest dream right now. If I can do it, it does not matter your age. I share my age openly. I am a 38-year-old woman. In July, I'll be 38. I'll be 38 in July. And so, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. If you want it, it is yours. You go get it. You claim it. You believe it. You live it, and you love it.
Yes. Where can people find you if they want to watch you, follow your social medias?
Yeah, my personal social media, where you will see me doing everything outside of news plus news, is on Instagram at The Weather Star. But all things weather and all things work is going to be Fox 11 Star Harvey. That is going to be my handle, not just for Instagram, but also across X, formerly Twitter, and Facebook as well.
And don't look up Steve Harvey. You're not going to find her.
Don't do it. Instead, look up starharvey.com. That's where you can also purchase my book from as well.